The views and opinions expressed in these historical letters that may contain vernacular used in the World War II era, the post-war era, and the Cold War era do not reflect the views and opinions of any of the individuals involved with this project, including, but not limited to, the podcast's creators. Morning, Jamie.
Good morning, Allison.
How are you doing this morning?
I'm so good. I'm really good. This is fun.
Yeah.
Because I think everybody will notice that we got our headphones on this time.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So we're just trying something new, and I honestly like it.
I do.
I honestly like it.
It feels very official.
It does. It feels like, is this the next? We are such slow-moving podcasters.
Yeah.
We're just doing everything in our own time. And that's okay if people don't like that. But anyway, so we are on episode 111.
Yes, we are.
That's today, episode 111. And it now that we're in like the hundreds, it doesn't kind of have the same impact that it did previous. You know, we got to 100. So, but I still do like the fact that it's 111.
Nice.
That's always nice. So episode 110, we did have some sweetie poetry.
We did.
Do you know, can you tease it a little quick? Is there any more?
I'm trying to recall if there is any at this point. I think that pretty much wraps up her poetry phase. She was jamming pretty hard there for a while. She was doing her own version of her late night. You know, I kind of see Sweetie like in the club, right, doing the late night poetry session. You know, reading
slam poetry with a little beret.
Yeah, that was her moment.
Yeah,
she did that. I haven't run into it since, but she definitely has the skill for it. So I wouldn't be surprised if I run into it again. But the ones we got to get, like the 7 or 8 poems that we got, they're their nice little folio, their nice little pamphlet of sweetie poetry. So yeah.
Well, and I do want to remind everybody, we are slow-moving podcasters, and things do take a lot of time, and Allison is very thorough. So she hasn't even broke the 50s with the letters yet. So I'm looking forward to the 60s and the 70s. And then the 80s when she writes about you. So I'm hoping that in those next decades, maybe we'll get a little bit more sweet poetry.
I think we will. Yeah, most likely. Yeah.
But today, so in episode 110, we got a few things let's talk about. She went over and helped G-Mom Graham, and she was there for her while Dit and Bob
did things and decided to just get away to Florida for a couple weeks and abandon her 70-year-old mother, for those that don't know the storyline yet, with 3 very small children, one about 4 years old, one about 3 years old, and the other one a baby. So she could have a fun time. And Sweetie was helping out a bit. And I think we saw one of these awesome moments of that time period was, if there wasn't reconciliation, not that there was too much needed here, but there was a little bit of a strain of relationship. I would say haunting the relationship from 1946 when Sweetie and Lou were living at Collingdale, and there was kind of a butting of the heads between Sweetie and G-Mom Graham. Well, that's been fixed at this point because G-Mom's like, thank goodness that Sweetie's here. I don't know what I would do without you. And that moment has brought them closer together, which is really, really great.
Well, and too, like, they're living apart now. Because there is a lot of traveling that I've read in these episodes. And so I want to just real quick, Sweetie and Lou are in Doylestown. And Dit, Elizabeth, and her husband are in Norristown, which is north, correct?
It's kind of to the west. It's Montco. So
it's Montco.
Yeah, Montco. Okay. I should be saying, for people outside of Pennsylvania, that would mean Montgomery County, but we're just used to saying Montco. So
we say Montco and Delco. But we do say Bucks County.
Yeah. It would be weird.
Bucks County is just like it's Bucks County. Yeah. But so also, I just want to point out that that's about where they live. And then Joe and Marguerite live in New York. So this is about the area that they're in. And, it's being from the western side of the state, it's nice to like kind of have an idea of where people are, because there is a little bit of driving going on in these next episodes. But we do have, this is a good episode today, because we have not one, not two, not three, but 4 this many Chester letters.
Yes, we do.
This is a longer episode, I think. This is going to be longer because we have a Sweetie letter, and then, so it's a 5-letter episode today. We haven't had one of those for a
No, we haven't. And Sweetie's letter is not a tiny letter by any means. So Jamie, we're going to get started here in just about a moment. We're going to catch up with Sweetie in early May of 1952. We've left April. Sweetie's quite busy. Couple things. If you could like, share, and subscribe to the Love Sweetie podcast on YouTube. If you're listening on the audio channels, and of course now you can't see us on our headphones, but we are. So let us know how the audio quality is coming through for you on those audio channels. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all the other ones. If you could download, follow, whatever it is you do, leave a review. That would be great. And then, of course, check out the website. It's actually just been updated with the upcoming episode titles throughout the summer for 2026. That's at www.lovesweetiepodcast.com. But Jamie, Sweetie's got some things to say. May 9th, 1952. Same old house, same old place, same old year. Dear Mama and Papa and all, I have had a letter from Sister and a couple from Jean, and I shall try to write a brief letter. That's what I usually say, even though I've a trillion things to do and practically no desire to do any, after having just finished a couple weeks ironing. Time passes so quickly, it seems only a day or two ago I wrote you about the usual incidents. Seems writing letters grows to be a bigger and harder job, simply because there are so many things to do, and I never quite seem to make the rounds once completely before the circle has expanded. Or else, I'm back where I started from. Lou had Monday and Tuesday off, and we got out and just worked like demons to get the rest of the bricks out of the well and start filling it in before some wandering kid falls in and cracks her or his skull. It was a bigger job than you'd think. The old well was just behind the stone wall, Jean, on Mrs. Meyer's side of the lot. I understand the neighbors had complained of it before we moved in, saying the cover had rotted and rusted and wasn't safe, and I understand had even gone to the Board of Health, who ordered Miss Darst to see that it was taken care of. But she chose to disregard their warning. The neighbors have cheered us for filling it in, and since it was as dry as a bone, what was it but a hazard? We had started to fill it in, and then kicked ourselves for so doing without taking out the bricks, so Lou got down in and shoveled the fill over so he could reach down and get the bricks. We hauled them via wheelbarrow from the well over to the little shed, and stacked them neatly there until we used them. We've got a nice pile of bricks now, and the well is well on the way to being filled, and so perhaps the hard work was worthwhile. But let me tell you, hauling bricks in the wheelbarrow was something of a job. I could only haul 21 at a time as hod carrier, and then had to heave and puff the fat back and forth across the yard. Here it is, one more day, and this letter not sent. May 8th, and it seems the weather is staying so very cold. I did tell a sad story about the iris not budding, and that ain't so, for there are about 4 of them ready to burst into blossom just any sunny hour now. It doesn't seem that I can get as much accomplished outside as I want to. There is just no end to the things that I can see to do, but can't get to. I wonder if you have any idea how many letters I write besides the ones I try to write to you. For instance, I had to sit down and write a couple of pretty strong letters to the insurance company and the roofing company about this $700 roof that Miss Darst sold us before we bought the house. These 6 days of rain I wrote you about were pretty hard on us, with the rain coming in, into the attic, down the second-floor walls, and through the ceiling and plaster. I guess the insurance company cannot legally force them to come and make it right, even if they are out $500, and Miss Darst the remaining $200, as she went about getting it fixed without making application to the insurance company, and without their authorization of the work, or of the company. I did persuade the man that since we were so darn broke, he ought to call them up and at least recommend they come back and make the work satisfactory. But now I'll have to write to the Better Business Bureau in Trenton to see if I can't stir them up to stirring up the roofing company, as they were from Trenton. I had to write and inveigle a new wheel for our power mower from the manufacturers, and in writing as sweetly as I could, got it for free, even though we've had the mower for something like 15 or 20 months already. And then when they were so nice to send it without charge, I felt beholden to write and thank them for it. I've had to write to different companies for information on refinishing. Wrote to Sigmund Rothschild, the antique appraiser on Kate Smith's afternoon TV show, and asked him if he might be interested in a first edition dated 1616, written by special permission of Caesar, all in Latin, the Commentary on the 5 Books of Moses, by Cornelius A. Lapide, professor of religion at the College of Bamberg in Brussels, Belgium. And when we find something that needs some research, I have to write lengthy descriptions to Joe and ask him to go to the library in New York, or to the Art Museum library, and see if we've caught a sleeper or if we got hooked on a blooper. I've got to write to some of the Jesuit schools, like Notre Dame, and some of those to see if I can't find a buyer for that book. We call it Cornelius's Commentary for short, and we hope it will prove to be worth a fair-sized sum. Dreaming again. Though actually there aren't many buyers for such a religious tome as that. However, it is practically a museum piece, and so perhaps valuable for its age, if not content. Then I've got Papa's questionnaire propped up here calling me all sorts of names for not getting it answered as he wants me to. Every day I think I'll get a letter off to Reverend Demarest to see if I can beg, borrow, or steal another copy of the Demarest family book. And every day I want to write to Aunt Mary to see if I can't buy that little ladderback rocker that Helen Francis fixed up when C was born. How often I've looked at that picture and just wished and wished I could lift up that little chintz skirt they put on it just far enough so I could see the first rung or spreader in front. I wonder if it is a plain straight rung or if it has some design or turning on it. That would tell its source and age and perhaps its value. But don't tell them I said so. I almost hate to write and ask for it, for just as sure as I do, they'll want to hang on to it. I don't mean that as being uncomplimentary to any of them, for I do it myself, and find it to be human nature to squeeze together anything that you think someone else might want. For instance, there is a little shed on a piece of property near a filling station between here and the base. It stands facing the road, and the front door is gone, showing a bunch of old junk mostly, but in behind is an old walnut hat rack that I'd like to have to turn into a fernery. We stopped and asked if the woman in the filling station owned it, and if she'd sell it. She looked at us rather surprised, but said flatly, "No, I don't want to sell any of it." We gave up, but every time I got past to the base, I feel sorry for that thing going to ruin in the rain and weather, and still she won't sell it. I've carried on a rather extensive correspondence with a Mrs. Myers, who is the curator of the Historical Museum in McGregor, Iowa, trying to get some information about a bottle of sand, varicolored, and made into a very lovely picture by an Andrew Clemens, long since dead. She wrote me that they had one in their museum. There is one in the Smithsonian Institute, one in the Des Moines, or rather the State Museum in Des Moines, that Andrew Clemens made as a special gift for his mother back in the 1800s. It was inherited by a grandson, and when the grandson died, his widow gave it to the State Historical Society. I wrote first to the Chamber of Commerce asking for information, and they turned me over to this Mrs. Myers, who wrote me quite a bit about this Clemens, and also asked me where we found this one and how we came by it. We found it at Causey's junkie sale and bought it along with an assortment of junk for $0.25, but I didn't have the nerve to write her that. From the tone of her letter, she'd about give her eye teeth to get a hold of it, and I suspect it would be like giving up our eye teeth if we did sell it. It is lovely, and one of the things you must remember to look at when you come. Had to write to Kodak and tell them to return our 16mm camera unrepaired, as they were going to charge us $37 for the job of complete overhauling and repairing. We just can't afford that now, so I wrote and told them to return it. Have had to write for want lists and price lists for the old books, etc. Wrote to get a pattern on how to re-web and retie springs to try to do over the sofa we bought for $15. I wrote you about that. You see, I have to fill so many positions, unpaid positions at that I just don't have time to get done all that needs doing, and it is more fun to be out in the sun scratching around and cleaning up than to sit in this dark house and pound a typewriter. Incidentally, I moaned to Lou the other day about having so many things to do, and ended up by saying, "I just wish I were twins." And Lou replied as he pinched my posterior, "You are." Very funny, Lou. Very funny.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, this was good.
Yeah, there's a lot here.
There was a couple things. Yeah, there was a couple things. Mm-hmm. Okay. So, yeah, she said that she just finished a couple weeks of ironing. Do you remember all the little dresses they put the baby in? Yeah. But yes, it does really seem like time is moving faster. And especially like in the summertime, it feels that way. Like it just feels like we're just like moving. Like I'm like, oh my gosh, it's Friday. You know? Let's see. Okay, so they got the old well, and they are tearing it down, which is good, and they're repurposing the bricks, which is efficient. And if you can be one thing, you should be efficient.
They're going to salvage as much as they can from anywhere, any part of the property. And bricks, they're expensive. Like, I think that's one of the pieces of a property that are basically taken for granted. You know, because they're just in the ground, because it's like walkways, stuff like that. But you don't want to have to go and buy new bricks and things like that. So good on them. But of course, Miss Darst had disregarded the Board of Health after the neighbors were like, this is a hazard. And she's like, oh, well. And then, of course, she's upset that it's being filled in. And they're like, no, we're done. There's no water in the well. It's over. So.
It's funny. She really holds on to that stuff.
She really does.
I mean, she never, ever had any intention of trying to fix that well or put a pump in the well or anything. I think everything became too overwhelming for her. And she's just like, no, what are you going to do? She's old. What are you going to do? Yep. She used the word in that whole part. What is it? Inveigle?
I love that one. That's a good SAT word, I think, or like a GRE word. Sort of like it's trickery and deceit to get something like a service or a good. It's a great word to use, and it is still a lot in current use. So if you spot that one in books, try to find ways to use it in everyday life. It's very applicable to a lot of things. So yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, and then, but so she went on, you know, she went through a whole bunch of stuff right away, like where she's having to write letters and stuff. And I always picture in my head, because she did mention like a dark room, like a room where they keep the typewriter. Yeah. She mentioned that. So they're downstairs, I'm guessing, that, or maybe upstairs. I'm going to say downstairs. Probably. Downstairs is a little room where she keeps her typewriter. So I imagine her running in there and just like, you know, when she's like in between stuff. And so she talked a lot about things. And there's a lot that I want to go through, like this roof that like $700. And I was like, what is that? Like $1 billion today?
So, you know what? Let's do you want to do that? Let's look at the inflation calculator. Yeah. As we, you know, good libertarians, inflation. Great.
Yes, the good libertarians
do. That's a type of tax right there. Of course, is the inflation calculator. All right, $700 in January. Well, we're in May. We're in May. Let's get it to the right date. In May of 1952 is in. What are we in June now? Oh my goodness, June of 2026 is now.
Oh yeah.
Ooh, it won't give me a calculation on the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Fail. All right, I'm going to go with a different inflation calculator. Hey, .gov, fix your inflation calculator. Let me go to the other one. If in 1952 I purchased an item, this is on the usinflationcalculator.com for anybody that's interested in doing this kind of stuff. $8,796.75. So inflation rate of 1,156.7%. So almost $9,000, $700 back then.
Wow. That sounds about right. Yeah. That sounds about right.
Fixing the roof, yeah. But Miss Darst messed up here. And this is not going to be the last time that we hear about the roofing story. You know, I'm going to pick up the Ohio accent there. But hey, she would too. Sorry. Because Darst is from Ohio. She's from Circleville.
She's from Ohio.
It's an inside joke. I'm just going to leave it at that.
You don't even have to like let them know. We'll just do it. But she's like, boom, boom, boom. I'm doing all this stuff. So she talks about the roofing company, and then she talks about this book. Yeah. That we've talked about before, right? We
have talked about this. Gotta investigate this some more. The book, the 1616 tome. We might still have that book. I have to ask my dad to go into some archives, some safe spots, and take a look at that book and see if it's the commentary on Moses. If it is, we'll get a picture of it up there. Maybe we'll work to scan it in if there's not a scan online, because I'm all for, making sure that history is out there. But there probably is a version of that. I'm going to do some hunting. If not, then that is just going to be another task that needs to be handled, which is making that publicly available. for this Professor Lapide from the 1600s in Belgium. The other big item here is the bottle of sand. And I know we don't have the bottle of sand. I know we don't.
What's the story?
Yeah, there is a story with the bottle of sand. It is one of the regrets. Yeah. My father did sell it in 2023 when he was going through some of the items that his mother had. I believe he does actually regret like parting with that. I can tell you approximately what it went for. She got it for a quarter. And I was like, where did you get this thing? Andrew Clemens sand, it's like sand art in a little bottle. Meticulously done from the 1800s. I think some of the high range of his work goes for hundreds of thousands of dollars. This particular little bottle of sand, remember, she bought it for a quarter. I believe he sold it for over $12,000. So it did come through for that, but I think he does regret it. I wish I could hold that bottle of sand today and be like, but we can't.
The 1800s too. Like that seems like such a funny time for it to be a popular art form. But maybe this was something that he did like. Actually, I'm going to look up more.
It's an interesting story, about Andrew Clemens. Yeah. If I can somehow find the buyer and have a conversation about that particular bottle of sand, or if they want to talk about it, if they've donated to museum, we can talk with them. We'll arrange for that. I'll see if that's in any of the realm of possibility, because it is such a unique item, and it absolutely is the exact same bottle. And I'm sure they would want to know exactly that it was picked up for a quarter and where it was picked up and who it was written about, so that there's this old history from the 50s of it. But yeah. What a great thing. So lots of updates. Hey, the story about the roof, the Trenton, she's threatening to write to the Better Business Bureau in Trenton, New Jersey. That's going to be a feature in next week's episode. So if you're wondering how this is going, just you wait for what's coming up with what Sweetie's going to do about what is the issue with these roofers in Trenton. So
it's going to be a good one. But there is one more thing that I wanted to before I move on to the second part of the letter. I really this really upsets me, and I think maybe this is like personally. So I just wanted to bring this up. So she talks about, you see, I have so many positions, unpaid positions at that, and that it very much bothers me. Because, a lot of people look at stay-at-home moms as not having a real job, you're unpaid. And then there's also a lot of people who are like, you don't realize what all she does. She's a cook, she's a doctor, she's an accountant, she does all these things. And so for her to like label that work, the very important things that she does for her husband and her child as unpaid, and to like, to lower herself to her contribution to be valued in dollars, which we can see are so weak. It's such a horrible way to look at something. I understand that, like, when you have a job and you get the money, that's right there. That's a direct consequence. It's direct. You feel it. You're like, I have this. Look, I can go do things now. I haven't had a job for like 13 years. I haven't made any money, and I do things around the house. I would just hope that, and I know that she doesn't see value in what she does, she's, because it's unpaid and she's not making any money. But I hope that all these mothers who are out there like doing this kind of stuff, like picking up the slack and making it so that your husband can come home and like relax and, have a peaceful place, because, it's rough out there. I hope that we can get to a better mindset as a society and understand that even if you're not getting paid, like what she did was absolutely priceless. Yeah.
I have nothing to add to that, Jamie. It's the right thing to say. And the only thing that's adding actually here to her personal opinion of the whole thing is she has that ever increasing inferiority complex. This is true. Right on top of that too. So, but going from that into the second part of today's letter, Sweetie has some more updates to give. Now, I did read at the beginning the letters from May 9th of 1952. She references, here it is, May 8th. And if you're wondering, like, how did that wind up being the case with the typewriter having the other date on the top? It's on the envelope for our audio listeners. The only way we date this letter that is technically undated is the envelope. So I just wanted to call that out real quick, because this is a letter that she took multiple days to write. I hate to write and tell you of our antiques buying when I'm always moaning about being so broke and too tight to buy this or that, but we happened upon an old cast Dutch or German for cupboard or linen press. I loved it on sight. Lou wasn't so keen on it as I was, but I just couldn't get it out of my mind. So we looked it up as well as we could, and found that it is William and Mary in style, dates from 1680 to 1720, and we bought it for $80. Found a newer one listed in Antiques Magazine for $1,250. No, that is no mistake in the decimal either. I cannot go into detail to describe it, but neither can I cut the picture out of the Antiques Magazine to send you either. Lou would slit my throat if I abused one of his magazines, and while it is going to need some repair or rather restoration, it should be well worth the money we couldn't afford to pay for it. I don't see how we'll ever sell it. It is truly a monstrosity, and just begs for a house like this one to be properly placed. There isn't such demand for them, as they are too big for most houses, but I just love this one and don't know when we'd ever find another, particularly one in as good condition as this one is. I can't remember ever having seen one before at all the sales we've attended, and so feel we have found something worthwhile. Luckily, we talked the man into taking 2 or 3 payments for it, and so it makes it easier, but just the same, when the time came to make the payment, I suffered a few qualms before I relinquished my hold on the money. I always do, but haven't yet been sorry to pay for something like that. We keep ourselves constantly strapped in buying antiques, but if you look at it as an investment rather than just money spent, we've got a fair-sized stock of stuff, and surely we'll get 2 or 3 times back what we've spent. I'm anxious to get it home, but just as sure as we do, we'll have a big argument over where it should be put and what we'll use it for. Well, I talked Lou into buying it, practically, so I'll let him say where it should be put temporarily. I'm anxious for you to see it. The cornice is all worm-eaten, but as far as we could tell, all parts are original. The dovetailing is more than excellent. The patina on the shelves and unfinished wood surfaces is like satin, but though the finish is undoubtedly original, we don't know what wood it is, but feel pretty sure it is a mixture of woods, and therefore don't feel we could strip it down and wax it, lest the difference in woods be too great. It is probably soft wood. I wish it would turn out to be walnut under the finish. That would make it worth so much more. We know that it isn't. Jean, before I go any further, let me thank you for your efforts in writing down the dates. It was very kind of you, but it would be much nicer if you had the dates right. My birthday falls on November 19th, remember? Not the 22nd. Yak, yak, yak. Just go look in the mirror. You'll be red in the face and almost crying. I had to back yesterday. Here it is, the 9th of May already. I've been on this letter for 3 days. Lewis had to donate something for a PTA bake sale. Rather, I had to donate it. But they did it in the kids' names, so I baked a loaf of banana bread for them and gave a can of my 6-cent canned peaches I got at a sale. Also, G-Mom and Elizabeth came over yesterday and turned the 3 house apes loose on me. Little Marguerite seems to have taken quite a shine to me, and when they loaded up and I started to put her into the car, she broke loose in a howl to end all howls to stay with me. Elizabeth got a rather shocked look on her face, and when I said, well, doggone it, you'll have to let her come and stay for a few days, she said, darned if I won't. Me and my big mouth and sudden impulses with all I've got to do. Ugh. I took all my tree geraniums down this morning and cut them up to slip. I got on the average of 4 or 5 slips per parent plant. Nice ones, too, and have them in water to root until I can locate enough small plants to pot them and get them into the sleigh window box. I did the same to the Joseph's coat and the century plants, and I'm going to have more of each than I can possibly take care of. We'll give some cuttings to G-Mom if she wants them. I dug up and gave her some ferns to transplant. We have them by the skillions, too. But I just wonder what earthly good it will do to take them and transplant them, when the kids just won't mind, and we'll have them trampled to death in a week or so. I must take up the ferns and transplant them into a straight borderline, as they are growing rather rank and undisciplined, having been let go so long. Well, I've got 3 other letters to get written this morning, and it is 11:30 already, so Jean, I'll have to let your letter lie on the rest of the pile with Aunt Rosanna's, and Sister's, and Papa's, and his questionnaire. I just can't take any more time to write more today. Besides, it is time Lewis was home for lunch, and none started. I don't know. I just wish I were twins. That's all, brother. Love to each of you. Sweetie. There's one thing that I did want to call out from the first section that kind of sees a recurrence in the second session here, which is the fernery that she mentions. I just wanted to note a couple of these items she's talking about because it's not something we hear about. A fernery is literally like a stand or a greenhouse specifically for the display of ferns. It's exactly as it sounds. So, I mean, I think only the gardeners, the intense gardeners would be using this terminology, and only if they had a display only of ferns. But that's that hat
That
rack.
is so funny.
There's something really, so she mentions the ferns again at the end, and I'm like, yes, that is exactly as it sounds. Speaking of items, the cabinet, if you're trying to get an idea of this, I have on the other screen here, Jamie, I'm just going to share a screen real quick. Something that's public domain posted public domain from the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York to give you an idea of one of these Dutch cabinets. Now, this is a very fancy version and probably a really excellent one, but it is Dutch. It's from the 1600s. So this is the kind of shape that we're talking about. Large, wide cabinet, usually about 2 panels. This one, of course, so much carving on the work, but you get an idea of the scale. Somewhere between, I guess, what you'd have as like a wardrobe, somewhere in that sort of level, maybe a little shorter than a wardrobe. For audio listeners.
So this was for clothes?
For the most part. I mean, in the 1600s, nobody used closets. Closets weren't a thing. So everything would have been in here. So you could store a lot, but most likely, I would assume, that this is for clothes.
Interesting.
And things like that. So that's kind of what she's talking about with regards to this cast. It's going to come up again in a future letter and future content. She's going to mention that people are taking a look at it. I don't think this piece is still with the family collection. It is a very large piece, and Lou sounds like he's not really a big fan of this, but there are some large pieces of furniture over the years that have stayed with the family. Usually early American is what they're going to go into. And in the previous part of the letter, she was salivating, of course, over that chair that one of the family members had. She loves her chairs.
She loves her chairs.
She really does.
And that would be a family chair.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because she loves her chairs, but she also loves stories. Mm-hmm. Like she loves she loves it to be important, and she likes to know everything she can about a piece before they buy it too. This is really fun. It's kind of funny to think about the way that they have to learn things. And she's like, I can't cut this picture out to show you because Lou would get mad that his magazines were cut up, and that's because that's how they got information, and they they couldn't just Google stuff like you just did.
We do
we
do have all the antiques magazines. I have to dig them all out. It's one of the things I have not pulled out because so many volumes, and I do not need that all over the place. And my father would be like, no, we're not getting all this out right now. But there are almost duplicate copies of antiques magazines, and I know they're collected, so at some point I am probably going to try to sell them in bundles. Usually they go by the year, the 12. People collect the older ones, and honestly, that is something I do not need to hang on to. But
no,
they held on to them all because it's reference. You see how much research she's doing on each of these items.
Oh, yeah.
Joe in New York calling up Des Moines, they're being like, where did you get this sand bottle? And she's writing to the guy on the antique show that she watches on television. I mean, this is pretty impressive stuff that they're doing to really understand all of it.
Oh, absolutely. Well, one other thing too I wanted to mention. She keeps changing it from million to billion to trillion to skillion. Do you notice this? We're at skillions now. But it's really funny because she's been doing it, and she went from millions to billions to trillions.
It has actually. It has increased in size. I wonder what she's going to come up with next. She skipped zillion.
I know. I guess
skillion for her was the zillion for us. There's
if she does zillion, I'm just gonna laugh. That's hilarious. But I had to point that out.
That's awesome.
The fernery, I remember thinking, what the heck is a fern?
Display for ferns. Now we know.
Nice.
Now we know.
Nice. But so that was our sweetie letter for today.
Oh, one more thing about that letter though, I do want to mention. Because we've seen this in a lot of letters, and our audio listeners can't see this on the screen. I wanted to address this. Every now and then there's a moment where she either says, what are you going to do? She says, yak, yak, yak. And then every now and then there's a burst of emotion that's sort of hard to represent because I don't know exactly what she's going for. She's finding a way to cuss without cussing. So I just go, oh, or something like that, at the end of a section. But for our audio listeners, and to explain this, because there's a curiosity with this, she gives a series of symbols basically from the top of the keyboard. If you notice really closely with this, notice the order of the symbols that happens. It is the dollars. It is the pound sign followed by the dollar sign followed by the percentage sign. Then there's a break. Then it's followed by the ampersand. And then there's basically the parentheses. And if you look at the top of your keyboard, this is probably the order in which it appeared on the typewriter. So when she's typing this, because it's one by one, and it's not just like, you know, a little soft typing that we do today, she is probably one by one going bam, 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 click, click, click across the top of the row. So at least for the first three, you see the order of it happening, which makes me think. And if you go back to actually YouTube listeners, if you're really into like, did that really happen? And you really want to dig through the episodes, you will see that appear on screen. And it is the same order every single time. So this is not just like random click, 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 whatever at the top of the screen. She is going across the top of the typewriter. And this is her expressing her frustration. So I have to find a better sound effect for this, but that's what that is.
Yeah, like I've always wondered how she, but you know, she probably is like, like that.
This is
to get her frustrations out.
This is cussing on a typewriter. That's what this is. This is, if there's an F word, it's there. So
she's not going to write it either. She's like, no, that's improper. That's indelicate. I can't do that. I'm going to go
right across the top.
That's hilarious. I didn't realize that they're all the same too, because that shows up quite a bit.
And you know, I noticed they were the same because in having to transcribe it, I'm looking for each of them every time. And then I noticed after like a few of them, and it continues in all the letters, it's always the same. So yeah, so you only notice it because I'm like looking so specifically at, and the transcription is exact to what the letter has for that order. It's not just me randomly typing up some stuff there and trying to fill it in. It is precisely what she had. So yeah, so if you need to cuss on a typewriter, that's how you do it, sweetie style. So
sweetie, okay, all right, thank you, sweetie. That was funny. But yes, that was our first letter. And so now, and the podcast is called Love Sweetie, but no. Sometimes Chester comes in there too.
Yeah, we were talking about locations at the very beginning of this episode. Jamie, you were talking about where everybody is. We're going to shift our location for the rest of this episode into the Midwest. We're going to go to Iowa. And we're going to go to Lacona. We're actually going to go to Indiana, too, which is great. It's going to get called out. Chester is traveling a little bit. Chester and Laura are out and about. Most of their letters, and the big one's going to be from Lacona, which, for our new listeners, Des Moines is the center of Iowa. Okay, and about an hour drive south of Des Moines in Warren County, close to the Missouri border, is Lacona. So if you're looking for it on a map, you probably aren't going to see Lacona labeled on a map. Look for Indianola. It's right close to it. That's the county seat of Warren County. So if you find Indianola, look to the bottom right of that county page to the southeast of Indianola, you'll find Lacona, and you'll be like, there they are. Today it's like a population of about 300 people. That's why you're not going to see it on most maps. But yeah.
Monday, May 12, 1952. Dear Jean, arrived here Friday afternoon okay. No car trouble or trouble of any kind. Arrived too late to mail a card, so this is it before we leave here for Uncle Cyril's. Mama's waiting in the car while I write this. It is 8 a.m. by your time. Everybody is okay, but it is odd here, a light frost on a green Sunday morning. Raining some this morning. We'll write again when we arrive in Indianapolis. Love, Papa.
So this is him, and they are traveling somewhere. This is Monday. So Friday afternoon, they arrived. They probably went to Chicago.
I'm guessing they went to see Frank.
Yeah, they went to Chicago. And yeah, because it doesn't say here. No car trouble, blah, blah, blah. So they got there Friday night. And then Monday, they were leaving at 8 a.m. to go to Uncle Cyril's. And I'm like, okay. So they're in Chicago.
Yeah, that's the assumption I'm going to make. And it's important to note that there's a lot of Demarees. Chester's family is in Indiana. And that remains the case to this day. There's a lot of, like, Demarees. If I had to say the highest population of Demarees where they are, the Demarees are in Indiana, the Demarest are in Jersey. That's probably where I'd say the family is located. But Cyril had been sick. We heard about this, and she had revealed this to Glenn, and well, she'd revealed it in the family letter, and she's like, maybe Chester didn't know because Chester had been unwell. So was he aware? And I'm guessing he's checking up on his brother at this point. Uncle Cyril is Cyril Demaree is Chester's brother, so that's why they're heading out there. And then Chester continues.
Bloomington, Indiana, May 15th, 1952. Dear Jean, We have arrived at the farthest point of our trip and hope to be back by Monday anyway. Aunt Rosanna says that they are beginning to feel the shortage of gas here. We have had no trouble so far and think that we can get back to Frank's without trouble. Want to be home Monday if possible. Our clan meeting was as good as anticipated. There were 13 in all. The groups broke up at about 2:15 p.m. Uncle Cyril's are okay. Francis is moving to Champlain, Illinois, where their main business is. Catherine Kaufman looks well for the mother of the largest family, is a grandmother, lives in an out-of-the-way place. Very glad to get your coat. I felt sorry to leave it. She says she will wear the coat some herself. Aunt Rosanna has a bug of taking medicine, a real sellout for the MD. Love, Papa.
What does that mean? Do you know, like, Aunt Rosanna has the bug of taking medicine. What does that mean? Do you know?
I think that he has other ways that he likes to treat individuals. And I think Aunt Rosanna is getting caught up in the basically new fashion trend of just over-medicating things. So I think it's the bug of taking medicine is like this fad. I mean, look at Sweetie with all the sulfa and the aureomycin. This was not the case the generation before. But the access now is so big. So I think that's what's happening here. Yeah.
That makes total sense. And especially given like the Dexedrine.
Yep. Yeah,
like,
the women.
Medicine.
Yeah.
It's just basically, you have a problem, take this pill. You have a problem, take this pill. And Chester is noting that, a real sellout for the MD.
Yep. And then, she also mentions the gas shortages. I was just looking at this. I believe there's an oil workers strike that's going on at this time. So, yeah, there's an oil workers strike all over the country, and so it's something that's happening in the news at the time. So if people are wondering what is he talking about, remember the Korean War is going on right now, so that's going to create a war issue is if there's a gas shortage, and of course if there's gas to be had, it's going to be going to the troops over in Korea first before it goes anywhere else, and he's out traveling. So if people are wondering, that's what that situation is.
All right, so we have one more. I love the postcards.
Me too.
They're nice and quick. But we have one more postcard.
Northbrook, Illinois, Monday, May 19, 1952. Dear Jean, we are leaving Frank's this morning and probably will be home by the time this card reaches you. I've had a good time and no traveling troubles so far. Talked on the phone with Sweetie this morning, the 19th, and could hear her as finely as if she were in town here. Louis has been sick, but only one of his usual attacks. You can phone Lizzie that we are returning home and that we have plenty of red bud and some other flowers for her if they feel like coming down to get it. We will be home in time for the iris bloom. Love, Papa.
It's gotta be so strange. Maybe not. Maybe he doesn't put stock in such things. But for your dad to read Louis has been sick, but one of his usual, to read about himself like that, it must be so, it just gotta be like such a weird feeling.
Oh yeah. I mean, I know I get kind of some of these feelings when I read about myself in the 80s. And I'm like, yep, there it is. But, a lot of the stuff you would never remember because it's just all kind of a blur. You remember early childhood memories. But this documented archival tale of every single sickness, I don't know where it exists anywhere else for anybody. And then I just, I really appreciate my father just being like, okay, whatever. And like letting it all just be out there as a matter of history and as a matter of medical history. I mean, if it's not recounted in ways like this, home care in the 1950s at this level and what drugs people are taking or that they're giving their children, where else is it documented? So I know that down the line, as we've got more medical professionals that listen to this, it fills in a lot of gaps because there's only so much they know. They know what's being prescribed. Do they really know what's going on at the house? house, or with town doctors who aren't working in corporations. And this is not the time of like historical archives. It really is not. It's in the late 60s and 70s where America just generally starts to say, oh yeah, we should start preserving our history.
Wow.
It really is. This is well known because if you think about Philadelphia and our history, a lot of the preservation of the major locations, Independence Hall restoration, Liberty Bell, all these sorts of things, that really starts in like the 60s, 70s. It's about around the time of the bicentennial when it's like, oh, we have stuff that's been around for 200 years. Prior to this point, it's kind of all over the place. The antiques are becoming big at this point because people are starting to wake up, and Sweetie's at the beginning. She's in on this before it gets really, really big. We can imagine antiques today and eBay and all this stuff. She's way ahead of everybody. And the few people that are ahead, they're the early adopters. But as far as medical history goes, who do you think is, like, we don't keep records of this stuff. One of the most fascinating items that I have is Jean's nursing license from the 50s.
Neat.
And printed out on a card. And with the job that I do, which I will not get into my main work, but I can tell you right now, there's a lot of licenses that the Iowa Board of Nursing has kept all the way back maybe to the 80s. This might be one of the only examples, because they would have gotten rid of records, of an actual physical printed real license from the 50s. And it's little items like that. Like we know with Sweetie's her badge that she wore at Ottumwa. That we featured in the episodes with the Ottumwa. I get it out right now, but it's got to dig it out and things like that. That, as far as we know, is the last remaining women's badge from that base from World War II. And we know this because the people at NAS Ottumwa said they have a men's badge. They had, to this point, never seen one of the women's badges until I showed it to them. And said this one exists. And so it's little stuff like this. The medical records are huge. The nursing license is such a big piece of history. I'm going to have to send a copy of it to the board and be like, yeah, do you guys have anything from the 50s, or is this one of the last remaining documents? Little stuff. So anyway, I'm digressing into a topic I could go on forever, but we need to get into the last big part of today's episode. Chester's back in Lacona. I wish I had a map, like, in Indiana Jones, where they're traveling by map, with the planes going through, or Carmen Sandiego in the old games where you have the map, just so we could track where Chester is, because it's like puttering over here, puttering over here. He's back to puttering in Lacona, and it's time to see what's happening at home.
Lacona, Iowa, May 19, 1952. Dear Lizzie, we arrived home about 6 p.m. without any mishap and without any undue fatigue. The roads were good and the traffic was not at all heavy, and we made good time, but did not stop but for a few minutes at 2 or 3 places to get something to eat, some gas, and to purchase a couple of bird baths that we found at a road stand on the side of Muscatine, and where we found fairly good crockery at a price after we downed the price by taking 2. Even after 10 days away from home, we found some of the landscape slightly distorted, or shall I call it unfamiliar, as we walked down the walk to the front door. Also, I noticed that we, after comparing notes, had to adjust our steps to cover the distance from the front door to the west side of the office and to the dining room. We had gotten out of stride, as we made it automatically and by force of habit in the past, but it does not take long to get back into the groove and habits. Things looked about as we anticipated. The rains and cold weather has held back our iris and was barely good and started. Almost all the younger plantings have promise of many buds, and there are several that will bloom this year, nearly a third of the total, that did not bloom last year. All in all, I am satisfied with the crop of bloom this year. We set out all our plants, the rose Mary gave us, and heeled in the poplars, red buds, and 2 dogwood shrubs that we bundled up so carefully before we started from Frank's. Lizzie, you should come and get them this coming Sunday, as they will be unsatisfactory if you wait longer than that to transplant them later than that. Also, we are giving you and Jabil the bird bath for your 15th wedding anniversary, and you must come and get all of these things. Besides, if the weather is not too cold, you will have a very good time to see the iris, as I think that you will be highly pleased to see some varieties that you have not seen before, especially some of the stemmed yellows that are really yellows. We are labeling all the prime qualities, especially the prolific bloomers, so we may propagate them to the fullest extent. We took careful note and found only one place along the road that had a single variety that we did not have. However, we saw several attractive beds still. We saw nothing particularly out of the average. Just before we left Frank's this morning, he called Sweetie by phone. It was an hour before we got them on the line, who said that she had just returned from taking Lou to work. Lizzie was at home, but said that he did not hear the bell ring. When I quizzed him a little more closely, he said that he guessed that he did hear the bell, but disregarded it. He has been sick, and they have taken him to the Army hospital and x-rayed his chest. And the doctors there said that either he was on the verge of taking pneumonia or is taking the measles, or the cough and infection was a result of the attack of measles. I do not have this down quite as Sweetie related it to me. However, the happy conclusion was that he really had a bronchitis, and he was expected to go back to school soon with the doctor's permit to re-enter his room. Sweetie, don't blame me too much if I did not get this right. I talked with him also, and was surprised that I could hear him as plainly as if he were in the town of Northbrook. We are glad for the opportunity to talk to them, but wish we were there to visit with them instead, and hope that it will not be too long before we will be able to go there. I have had a couple of patients in since we arrived here by 6 o'clock daylight savings time. While I'm writing this, Mama, Mrs. Butler, and Aileen are attending the lodge, since they have not been in attendance for some time. I do not know if there will be very many there, as it is a busy time for the Agricolae, and there will be some that are too tired to go. The news report states that Visha Day Parade at Iowa State College was viewed by 90,000, and the 2-mile parade took 2 hours to pass. We had hoped to see it over the television, but had to be away and could not do it. Frank, so far as we stand now, I do not think that Sight's got anything, but it might be that he did. So if you find anything that we let him have, put it aside and we will get it when we go back there in the near future.
Mm-hmm. Again, it's just, see, normally when Chester writes, he doesn't write about Lewis.
Right.
So for him to write about Lewis and then for Lewis to like narrate it still, it's so funny. Yep. I wonder how it feels for him. That's neat. So they he got to talk to her and he got to talk to them, and then they did say that they want to go visit. This is a thing that we have seen before. There's that she really wants them to come out there. And like when we were reading these letters, or I was reading them earlier, I was like, why are you going to Indiana? And if you just keep going just for a little bit.
Yeah.
And then you get on the beautiful turnpike that I'm sure was much cheaper back then. Man.
Yeah, it was. We had the price, was it like $4 round trip, I think. We'd seen that. And then, of course, all the Howard Johnsons along the way. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But
yeah, so it just, but for, so he got back on Monday and then saw patients.
Immediately.
Okay. I mean, he's powerhouse. Yeah. You don't mess with Chester.
You don't, yeah. I love like some of like just the little trivia pieces that are in here that he gives. I mean, obviously he's puttering around the garden. He's doing his thing. He's happy to see the iris. He's picking up the bird bath, and he's like, "Oh, but I got it for you and Jabil and all this other stuff that's happening." Fun times. 15-year anniversary for the Boltons. That's all great.
That's actually, it's really funny because I just had my 16th anniversary.
Right, yeah. Mm-hmm.
was yesterday. 16th wedding anniversary. Together. Yeah, it was yesterday. So that was kind of fun. I was like, oh, she's married just almost as long as I've been married. That was fun. Yep. That was fun coming across that. And it kind of gives it a different, we learn little bits about Lizzie. You know, like it's really, we don't really talk about her because Sweetie doesn't really talk about her. She talks about her a little bit with the seeds and stuff like now. But we're learning, you know, she's been with Bill for a long time. And then there was something that happened in the beginning, you know, like where there was kind of like an outs with Chester about, you know, Jabil. I don't know, Laura. I think Laura's just like whatever. But so we're kind of picking up these little tidbits about Lizzie. So it's fun. It's fun to like learn about her too.
And then as to a couple of pieces of the trivia that he does give in this part of the letter, the first one is, I love how he has to specify daylight savings time, 6 o'clock in the morning, which normally no one would bother to put in a letter. It's like, okay, it's May, so you're in daylight savings time. But we do have to remember that during World War II, daylight savings time was instituted year-round, and it was called wartime. So I think Chester's being very specific here, but it's a neat little note to give about the clocks in World War II, because they wanted everybody on the same schedule and they didn't want the movement of the hour during that war. They haven't done it in the Korean War, but during World War II, they just stayed on the same daylight savings year round, which is interesting. It might be the only time in history that we've done it since it was started, I think, by Franklin. And then the Visha Day Parade. I had to look this up, and then I had to find a YouTube video where people were talking about it to make sure we pronounced it right, so we did. It is the Visha Day Parade. This was an annual tradition at Iowa State University, and Visha was an acronym for Veterinary Medicine, Engineering, Industrial Science, Home Economics, and Agriculture. So it's really like, sort of like we have Del Val University, formerly Del Val College over here, the agriculture school. So this is like the annual agricultural tradition and parade that everybody's following. However, I am reading online that it was permanently discontinued in 2014 following violent riots, because it gained an, quote, infamous reputation for getting out of hand with property damage and things like that. So Visha ended in 2014, but had at that point been going on annually since 1922.
Let's talk about how he and Laura compared notes about how many steps it takes to get to different places in their house.
It's amazing.
I love how he's like, Laura, did it take you extra steps to get to the dining room? And she's like, well, Chester, it actually did.
It is.
Let us compare notes. Yeah. Like they're just those kind of.
It's too funny.
They're just those kind of people. It's so funny. But this is fun because we don't get Chester letters, we get Chester postcards. So we actually have a second half.
I will try and develop the pictures that were made while on our trip. I expect to receive the big 8x10 picture of our class when we go to the post office tomorrow. The photographer only took one picture of our class, and I fear that it may not be perfect. I was intending to obtain some old pictures from various members of the family to copy, but I forgot to go into the matter. I have some work of that kind to do, and after I send some of them copies, I think that I will be able to get more to do. You know that I am making these pictures into an album for each of you so that you will have some sort of chronological album of pictures of the family and the old homesteads, birthplaces, and other genealogical landmarks that will be of interest, or should be of interest to each of you. However, to date, there is only one of you that seems to take any interest in the matter. However, I will go after the matter anyway, and maybe there will be some of the grandchildren that will take some interest in the project so that the work will go on. I wish that Sweetie will write to the Demaree Association and see what she is able to find about what they're about to do for their annual meeting this year. I have not heard from them this year, as usual, and we generally have some word from them by this time giving notice of their meeting and their solicitation of membership dues. I have written them and will do so again, but would like for you to do it also, as I would like to hear from them and get into the program before it is too late. I feel that the old patriarch Dr. Demaree is either ill or he has passed on, and so the ties are breaking up to a certain extent. Perhaps we will get a letter from them in the mail tomorrow, as we did not get home in time to get the mail this evening. I suppose that we will have quite a pile of mail when we go to the post office tomorrow. Perhaps I will not mail this letter till the last mail out tomorrow, so that I will be able to go through the mail first, and there will be perhaps something of importance in it, and may be able to add more to this letter for you. The evening air was too cool for comfort when we entered the house this evening, so we built a fire, and it was not too much. The weather report is that we will have cloudy, cooler, and scattered showers, so we did not arrive any too early. We passed through some of a shower before we arrived at Knoxville this afternoon, late, and did not miss it too far when we predicted that we would run into rain before we arrived home. It appeared that we would have rain through half of our journey when we were fairly started this morning. We did not find anyone that challenged us to a driving duel this trip, much as it was while we were traveling on the trip over. However, we always found a few of those that resented passing. There were not so many that were hitchhiking either, both ways this trip. We found a crawfish hole in our iris bed before we left on our trip. I partially dug him out then, but partially stopped up his door. But when we returned, we found that not only had he dug it out again, but apparently he had grown somewhat as the doorway appeared larger. This is somewhat intriguing, as when I was a kid, I always wanted to dig one out. So I think I will try to dig this one out. Maybe not tomorrow, as I feel that I am taking a little cold. Have been a little dizzy since arriving home, and I think the cold theory explains the inability better than car sickness, which one would partially suspect from such a long trip. It's after 10, and I think that I will fix the fire and go to bed, as we are both tired. Mama has returned from the lodge meeting, and so I will call it a day. The grass will have to be cut, and this is one of the first of tomorrow's duties. Jean, we are sorry to hear that you came down with the movie camera, and we were not here to receive it. We left here about 6 o'clock. We went through Indianola as we had a heavy load of lumber for Frank and did not want to go through the mud and rough road through Melker. We'll be going through Indiana later this next 2 months, and we will be able to use the film you got us. If I had known the film would have come, we would have waited for it in Indianola. We would like for you two to come Sunday with all the rest. We hope we'll be here then. We will be looking then. We are glad that you did not break out while interviewing Mrs. Butler. Come Sunday. There was no important mail this morning, so I'm going to close this and get it in the mail as soon as possible, so you will get it as early as possible. Drop us a card and let us know if you are coming, as we may have something important to attend to Sunday. Love, Papa.
That was handwritten.
That one's actually a typed letter from Chester, one of the rare.
That's a typed letter.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh. Yeah. he had a little. Mm-hmm. Chester's a little. He writes very odd. Like his cadence in writing is it's very much like he started a thought and then came back to a different one and then went forward with the other thought that he had. Maybe we're not sure, but yes, he's, and I see this with some people who are very intelligent. You'll see that they're always like 4 or 5 steps ahead. I think he's like, I'm going to do this. And then he comes back to stuff. So, but yeah, he's a workhorse too. He's like, I'm going to mow the yard. I'm like, just got back from Chicago and and you're already on it.
And then Laura, she's observing this. She's been married to Chester since 1913. So she knows everything about his habits. And, it's interesting. She's, older too. She's going out late. It's after 10. She's just getting back from the lodge. she's got her own life. We don't get to hear as much about Laura and what's going on with the lodge and all these things like that. But she was a powerhouse in her own right. She had to be a powerhouse to put up with Chester with a lot of different things. Driving duels, as he calls it. My dad had actually commented on this while narrating. It's like, he really was, kind of a really competitive driver, aggressive driver on the roads. We know about the flat toes. We know how much he's speeding through everything, except then he'll probably like brake suddenly for a flower. Like, I can see this being like, whoa, what's that on the side of the road?
I have not seen that variety of Iris.
I mean,
I must stop and putter
they're
about
road
it.
tripping to New Mexico. These guys have been in a car. He's been out camping. He lived in South Dakota. He's got that Ford for a long time. He had the Model T or Model A. I think it was the Model A Ford back in the 20s. So this is a guy that he likes to be on the road. He likes to be out doing things. I love this little part about the crawfish hole because he's so obsessive about it. And he's like, I could just imagine him leaning over, looking into this hole in the garden, and Laura being like, what are you doing? He's like, there's a crawfish here I've thought about since as I was a child that I wanted to pull one out of these. He's like thinking about this, and her probably just being like, like,
well, she's like, good, he's got himself occupied.
He's just staring at this hole in the ground. There's
meeting.
A crawfish here. So, yeah, I love it.
He is definitely cut from. He's broke the mold.
Yep.
After that, I'm all sad now because I was like, yay, we're going on, and like we're done.
No, we're ending the episode there with Chester.
That went quick.
Yeah.
But that was cool to hear from Chester. That was a lot of letters. You have to thank your dad for that was a lot of letters. Yeah. But so he's been traveling, and so looking forward, is there going to be a big trip to Pennsylvania?
We'll see.
He can travel. Let's see. So, but that is all for this week.
Bye.